Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio!
Minor Wisdom!
Hey, everybody. So what's going on? This week I've got Marie Phillips. Been a long-time listener, I believe. I believe she's been a long-time fan. Got to meet her a few years back at TXETA. I think it was the year she started in education, but or maybe the next year. There it is. But finally had her on, and this was really, really fun. Like, if you've met her before, and she'll tell you this, she's pretty shy initially, but she's one of those people that once you get her talking, as you're going to hear in a second, the comedy and the sort of sarcasm and some of that side of her, also, I'll safely say it, she's smart AF, bro. So she's just really knowledgeable. And I had a really good time talking to her on, I don't know, August, it was a while ago. It was almost a month ago now. So, and that's how most of these episodes are going to be. We're just going to get further and further away from the actual interview. So a couple things to talk about. Not going to be that long of an intro. I say that just like the person that says, hey, I'm not going to be long. I'll get you out of here on time. And then 5 minutes after they're supposed to be gone, that's finally when they wrap up. But anyway, a few things, actually, more than two. So a few things. Numero uno. Hey, HISD. I hear you. I see you. I'm sorry about you. It really sucks, but I hope everybody in HISD had a good school week, even though your libraries are gone and you have to keep your doors open at all times, and you're supposed to make the best reader read, and it was so stupid, but that really sucks. So hope everybody's doing well there. I have taken on I have the pleasure of teaching on a Wednesday for Class Act Productions, of which I'm a board member and been a part of for almost 20 years now. Not a board member for 20 years, but been a part of for that long. I'm now teaching an acting class to 9 through 13-year-olds. That's right, you heard that, 9 through 13-year-olds. 1 hour a week until November, and I'm having the time of my life. Now, I'm having the time of my life because I do it one time a week for 1 hour, and I'm having a blast. The kids still have, at 5:30, a ton of energy, a ton of creativity. They have fallen in like with me, so they trust to say things to me, which can be dangerous when you're 9 years old and you don't know what certain things mean. But I legit am having a good time. Which brings me to my next kind of little thing. I don't remember who. Oh, I know where it was. I'm not going to call them out, but I was in a meeting at my new job, and we were talking to a teacher, and they said something about behind, or they said moved it forward, or something to that effect, right? If you're in theater, use theater terms. If you're talking to theater people, even if you're not, use theater terms. There's no such thing as behind in theater. I get what you get. I get what you mean. I mean, that was ironic. But say upstage, downstage, stage right, stage left, backstage, offstage. Don't say behind. Behind doesn't really exist in the world of theater. Maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm in the minority of this. I'm the minority for lots of things. But it drives me crazy when theater people don't use theater terms. Like, if a doctor said, like, hand me that thing that cuts the skin. Hey, that over there, that silver thing that cuts the skin. Like, no. He's going to say scalpel, right? I almost said spatula. That would have been funny. But, just do it. It's a pet peeve of mine. I'm going to get off that one. We lost our hamster today as I record this. I buried my hamster today, Ava's hamster. And I deal with death. My sister and I deal with death in a very unique way because our parents died when we were younger than we should have been. And so we have a funny way of dealing with things, of coping and dealing with tragedy. And so today was the first time my youngest, Eleanor, has had to deal with the death of something or someone that she loved, And Georgie has been around for 2.5 years, and she lived longer than she should have because those just small hamsters don't live that long, right? But anyway, Eleanor didn't take it well, but Ava, she cried at the beginning, and then she started making these off-color comments, and I was like, Ava, you can't do that around people that grieve like a normal person. Uh, it's fine around me. I don't care. But she then comes up to me and whispers and says, Daddy, I'm just glad that Georgie didn't become a hamster nugget and Juju didn't eat her. This is 10 minutes after she found out that her pet died. Anyway, and she's almost 11, right? So she knows, she gets it. What a great way to intro Marie Phillips. The very last thing I'm going to mention is that I think I'm going to start a Patreon and maybe release one more playwright series, one more playwright interview, but I've done a couple more since, and I might start putting some more exclusive stuff behind a paywall, right? Just to see if it works, just to see if this can be monetized in the least, since I have only ever asked for money when I'm trying to pay the actual fee, and that's through the t-shirt, which are still available, by the way. I'll put the link in. But yeah, I might do that. I'm going to look into that over the Labor Day weekend, and I'll get back to you. I'll contact your people. Enjoy this week's interview. It was a really fun one. I clicked really well with her. Like, we just had a really good time, and it's going to come across through the interview. I can't say that about every interview. I'm not going to call you out. Looking at you, Bobby Ramirez. Love you.
So I was born in near Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's where pretty much all my family is from. We moved to Texas because 2008 in the recession, the division of my mom's company just shut down, and then she was hired onto another division that happened to be in Dallas, Texas. Um, and so and I remember that being more of a culture shock than I was expecting, for a lot of reasons. And then I got the theater bug between middle school and high school. My history teacher was doing Romeo and Juliet as a summer camp. And I looked it up and I told him I really wanted to play Mercutio. And he was like, "We'll see." And then I did, and it was so much fun. And my sister actually played Tybalt, so she got to kill me, spoiler alert. Um, and for whatever reason, too, we were going to Minnesota that week, and we could not wait for whatever reason. My sister and my mom were flying, but my dad and I were driving. So from the play, we actually drove up to Oklahoma for the night. And like the whole ride up there, like my dad had to listen to me talk about this experience, and I was just on such a high and like so incredibly happy. So by the time I got to high school, I knew that I wanted to do more theater, and I pretty much did every play that I could in whatever position that I could be in. Um, I think you also mentioned like not really being in the UIL world. That was the same case to me. I went to private Catholic school, so we didn't do UIL or thespians. So that was new to me in becoming an educator and something that I had to fill myself in on. Um, my sister always knew that she wanted to study musical theater, and she did. She's amazing. Um, but I knew I wanted to be a theater major, but I was resisting it because of the wanting to have a clear career path. Um, and I apologize. I'm a bit of a rambler
You're
and
doing fine.
with
You're
lots
doing
of ums
good.
and such. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Um, yeah, not always the most coherent sentences, so I'm glad. Okay, so but then I discovered that like, oh, I could go to theater specifically to be I go to theater. I could go to
You
college
could do both. Yeah.
to do theater. Yes, exactly. I go to specifically to be a theater teacher, and then I would be going towards a specific career path. And I was also very like bought into theater education and the value of it, specifically because I was a kid with dyslexia. I really struggled academically, so theater gave me something that I was good at. It forced me to collaborate, and I was someone who was very shy. It forced me to fail over and over again and just be okay with it and move on from it rather than dwelling on it and give me more opportunities to recover from it. And to come out of my shell again because I was very, very shy. So this it was really perfect for me, and I also had, like, a lot of teachers in my family and teachers who really inspired me, so it was just a really good fit. So, I went to Stephen F. Austin State University. I went to their summer camp first, SFA High School Workshop, which I'm the TD for now, woo, and just yeah, why plug that in, brag. Um, it was the coolest thing ever when I came back for that. Anyway, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. So I went to Stephen F. Austin State University studying theater education, and I think Carter Ridge on her episode said that TAN UCC is the place you got to go for theater education, but I would definitely say it's SFA. Um, I know a lot of great people from TAN UCC, and they're amazing educators, but I would not trade my experience for anything else. And also, they've got a brand new fancy building that they're opening this year. Also, Jennifer Malmberg, excuse me, um, is runs the Department of Theater Education, and she's fantastic. Anyway, I actually changed my minor while I was at SFA because I wanted to pursue other stuff, but I always had the idea that I could go back to education if I wanted to. Um, so when I graduated, I did 2 tours with Missoula Children's Theater, and, that was really fun. If you don't know Missoula Children's Theater, basically, I went up to Missoula, Montana, got trained for 2 weeks, and then me and one other person drove a red Ford F-150 across the country with all of our, um, costumes and set and props, and we would go to different communities, typically very small communities, and put on a play in a week. And it was typically like K through 5, but it can be K through 12. And depending on how small the area was, it often was. And that was really fun. I did some waitressing in college. So I used to like to say that working in food service I saw the worst in people, and but with Missoula Children's Theater, I saw the best in people. People were just so kind and generous to us and wanted to show us their community and wanted to give this experience to their children. So that was really rewarding. And also, it gave me the opportunity to like start over all the time. So we'd start one week, and all of a sudden it was over, and we were in an entirely different state. So I did 2 tours of that. First one in the Pacific Northwest in Canada, and the second one in the Southeast. And then during this time, I was applying to internships. And at the time, I was applying for directing and dramaturgy, which was very competitive. So I applied to a lot and I only got 2 interviews. And when I got the rejection from the second interview, I was like, oh no, so this isn't happening um, because it's too late now, like all the other applications have passed. But I noticed that one of the theaters I'd applied to was still looking for a carpentry intern. Um, and I just figured, well, I'm better than nobody. And I guess that was true because I was hired pretty quickly. And it was also something that I'd really wanted to do anyway. Like, essentially, my goal of this internship is I just wanted to see what it was like in the professional theater world, and I would still be getting that experience. And I had done some shop work in college, but not as much as I would have liked to. So then it gave me that chance to grow there. And I did. I grew a lot. So I did an internship at Triad Stage in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I worked with the three best people ever. Tanish Boyajian, she was the technical director there, um, along with TJ and Shane, carpenter and master carpenter, and they were so kind to me. I was awful. I was so bad. Um, they were just like miles and leagues ahead of me, and I also just didn't realize like how like rudimentary my knowledge was until getting there, but we had a great rapport, and they were so supportive of me and took a lot of time to train me, even though, it's a busy, hectic schedule, and there were only 4 of us building all of these massive shows with once in a while some overhire people. Um, so that was a great experience, and by the time I was about to leave, I'd had a summer job. I was gonna be a carpenter at the Texas Shakespeare Festival in Kilgore, but then the pandemic happened, and that was really interesting to be at a regional theater when that happened because, they made the decision to, um, lay off, pretty much everybody, certainly all of production, all the people that I was working with, but they decided to keep um, the apprentices or the interns, through the end of our contracts, and they actually kept us on a little bit longer. And basically, we were there to we did some online stuff, because had experience with Missoula. I was working with the education director, and they had a summer camp, so we still did that summer camp, but online, and I helped with, like, signups, and I like, these storybook videos and did, like, arts and crafts and games and stuff, um but we were also, like, packing stuff up, like, just it was and actually Triad Stage, after, like, holding on for quite a while recently, like, has closed its doors permanently, which was very sad, but, like, as it goes, and maybe it'll, like, lead to bigger and brighter things, so that actually I had already been thinking, like, "Okay, I'm definitely not wanting to be in the regional theater scene or doing a lot of freelance. Like, I think I want to be a teacher." And Missoula Children's Theater previously had also like put that back in my brain because I worked at a lot of schools with a lot of teachers who were beautiful, inspiring people. So between Missoula and things kind of blowing up at Triad, like I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. And then I saw the position for Belton off of Facebook, Belton High School, and again, just decided to apply. Really didn't think I was going to get it. Was not even certified in theater, and then I think I was at the building at the theater at Triad, and I just get a call from the principal, like, "Hey, can you interview in, like, 10 minutes?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can." And luckily, the director of development and another apprentice were over there, and they helped me, like, get set up in, like, the meeting conference room, so it looked like I looked somewhat presentable in my Zoom interview, um, but it was probably clear that I hadn't showered, and I even, like, called a friend of mine, Maggie Strain, who's, I believe still a middle school teacher in the Austin area, like, and just asked her, like, "Hey, do you have any tips? I'm about to have this interview, like, what are some questions that I should ask at the end?" Which I anticipate, and she answered those really well, and the interview went great in terms of, like, a very spur of the moment interview, and yeah, and it was very clear that it was gonna be happening. Afterward, Melissa Stuff, who's also been on this podcast and is the head director at Belton High School, she called me, gave me some more information, gave me some tips for alternate certification, um, and that's how it all went down, and now I've I'm in my 4th year. Yeah.
Wow, 4 years. Jeez,
Yes.
that's how long I've been doing this. I've been doing this podcast a little longer than that, but that makes me feel like this podcast has been around for a while because I think I met you. I met you pretty
No,
much your
I've
first
been
year.
listening for a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but weren't you at like TXETA your first or second year or something like that? I feel like that's
Yeah, because the first 2 TXETAs
or
were
yeah,
canceled,
yeah,
or one of them happened online and the other one was
yeah.
canceled. I didn't mention that I'm the tech director at Belton High School, by the
That's all
way. I
right.
should probably say
That's
that,
all right.
yeah. So
Melissa's just there to collect a paycheck, and yeah, yeah,
oh my god,
yeah.
no, that couldn't be further from the truth, yeah.
No.
I don't even wanna joke about it, so,
She knows
yeah.
if she's listening, which I'm sure she is. She knows I'm kidding. Okay, so I wrote down quite a few things. First of all, uh, so you mentioned that when you moved to Dallas, it was culture shock, but was it also
Yeah.
like season shock? Like you no longer had spring, fall, summer, winter? Like was it like was the weather different for you? Was that because Minnesota's ravenous during winter at least?
Yes, absolutely, I definitely really miss the snow. I
Yeah,
used to love to go snowboarding. Um, Snow as a kid is so much fun, but definitely as an adult now, I
yeah,
don't miss it at all. I'm glad. With Missoula, I did have a little bit of experience of driving in snow and ice, and it was really scary,
yeah,
actually. Yeah. Um, so that was definitely a big part of it. I also realized like, wow, I actually kind of like trees and nature
yeah,
and soft grass, and I just didn't realize that wasn't a place in some places. Like especially Dallas too. That's what I like about living in more of the central Texas
yeah,
area. It's very different vegetation, but at least there is actually nature to admire here.
yeah. It's not just cement. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Dallas is kinda I love Dallas, but it is kinda just a
It's
mess,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot of structure.
Yeah.
So I want to get to the fun stuff first. For the SFA camp, how was that? Because this was my first experience this summer with a summer theater campus stay, a sleepover camp. I say sleepover camp. You know what I sleepaway camp. That's what I'm trying to say. But I did the commerce one. And I saw your posts, some of your posts about SFA camp and some other people with that camp or Corpus or Towels or whatever. I think Texas Tech does one. But like, what's for you? Kind of describe, I guess, the camp experience. Because now
Yeah.
you've done it both as a camper and as a right? Is that what, or did I hear that wrong at the beginning?
No, that's
Yeah,
absolutely
so
right.
you've done
Yeah,
both ends.
I went there right before I as a camper, I went right before I went to college. It definitely solidified me wanting to go to SFA. I actually met one of my best friends there, Maggie, who I mentioned and helped me with my interview. I also met there. Um, and it's hasn't fundamentally changed, but there have been a lot of changes. In small ways. So basically, SFA High School Workshop is broken up into 2 camps. One is the tech camp, one is the acting camp. Um, and so I run Workshop B, which is the tech camp. And the students get to design the 3 shows that are put on, and we try to assign them 2 design roles. Of course, they still kind of have a little bit of a mix in everything, including like run crew positions and such. But we spend the 2 weeks designing, building, presenting, brainstorming, and then we put on a show and they get to win awards. And I also get to work with the college students. So I think each year I've worked with 7 tech counselors. Um, Both years we've actually outnumbered the number of campers. So my first time doing this, we had 4. This year we had um, 7. We had 7 campers. So we actually had more counselors, which was and we're growing more and more, which is great too. But I will say like compare even though it is 3 shows in 2 weeks, because that there are so many of us, and we're only focusing on shows, it's it's just so efficient and so much fun, and you're around people that love what they do and are bringing new ideas to the table. And it's just really rewarding to like come back
Yeah.
and um, give and be a part of a program that I love.
Yeah, that was that the efficiency element was my experience too, is because you're so focused on just that, like you said, I'm just repeating your words, but that was my experience with commerce was by the end of week one, we were pretty much done with the bulk of the work for the shows that we were doing because that's all we did for
Yeah.
from like 8:30, 9 o'clock until 5, 6 o'clock. All you did was you stayed in the shop for 6 days and did what was needed, and it was, I mean, it was great. That was fun. But now you're starting to be like, well, what do we do now? you know, you start to add little things and you start to over design a little bit sometimes, and um, but yeah, but that was my experience too. Did SFA do the camp? Was this the first year back from COVID, or was this second year? What
Yeah.
was it?
Last year was, yeah,
Okay.
this year was the second year.
Okay. Yeah, I think numbers were down all over the place. I mean, even commerce, we had 4 tech students. We had, I think, 34 total, but 4 of them were tech. And I know TALS was low. I know UH was low. Everybody was low. I think it's just people are having to retrust. Um, the whole thing, the whole camp world. So cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good sign too. Like it's definitely growing and all the students that I heard from had a really positive
Yeah,
experience and a lot of them came back. So,
yeah.
yeah, it can just get better and better.
Um, and I have to say that I disagree with you as far as and Carter about the best school to go get a theater education for educators, and that's UH. It's University of Houston. That's obviously the best one. But anyway,
Uh,
it's because I'm a part of that team. So, but I digress. So the Missoula Children's Theater, I have heard of that before. I had heard of it. Uh, I don't remember why or what my interaction with them was, but how was Montana for you? I can tell you
I
why I'm
loved
asking. Okay.
Montana.
Okay.
It was beautiful, man, and Missoula is a hidden
Yeah.
gem, and it has an airport too,
Yeah.
so I've often thought like, "Man, I just gotta go up there for a vacation." It's a beautiful place, it's a really fun place,
Yeah.
I didn't explore a lot of Montana, but there was one drive where we drove through Glacier National Park, and that was totally stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I do like the landscape of Montana. I think I've said this before on this podcast that Montana's the only when I was touring with Straight No Chaser, Montana was the only state that vandalized our buses. Like like somebody in the middle of the night while we were staying in a hotel completely spray painted the side of one of the buses, and
Oh
it was like
gosh.
it was vulgar. But
Oh, well, yeah, nothing like that over here, not for the children's theater
yeah,
trip,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. So it was awesome. I mean, we all thought it was kind of funny and cool, but not the bus drivers. They did not. They didn't appreciate it. So okay, so I want to hit on a couple things that are hard hitting things. You said a couple things that maybe have been said before, but I just wasn't paying attention until I heard you say it. But you mentioned that you were forced to fail, and it was okay, right? That theater,
yeah.
okay. And I really really liked that you said that. Not that that's new, I don't. You're not. It's not groundbreaking news that theater allows you to fail and be okay with it. But what clicked in my mind was, did you learn that from someone? Did somebody teach you that it was okay to fail and be okay, or did you just kind of figure that out? Was that just kind of one of those things that, oh, this is going to happen and that's okay?
That's a good question. I'd like to say that I figured it out, but probably somebody said it to me. That was also just something that I learned through just living life as well. I mentioned being dyslexic too. I actually couldn't like, I could read but I couldn't didn't have good reading comprehension until I was about 12. Like, I didn't sit down and read a book until that age. And I just remember being a kid and thinking like, "When's it gonna happen for me?" Because I was very fortunate. My parents gave me a lot of tutoring. Like, my dad would work with me a lot and even, like, recorded, like, little audiobooks for me, to listen to, but I just so I was working really hard to get better at it, but it just wasn't happening. And then one day I just thought Stephen King sounded pretty cool, and I grabbed a Stephen King book and I read it, and it was like it wasn't, even though it came about through gradual progress, it didn't feel that way. It seemed like, "Oh, I couldn't read, and suddenly I can read." So, I guess even to, like, going back to my education in theater or my internship, like, during my internship, I was really awful. And then, but I knew I was trying and I knew I was getting better, and there got to be a point where I wasn't contributing as much, especially just because, everyone else is so much faster than me, but I had the thought of, like, "I think I can do this now." I think if I was given if I had to do this alone, I could do it now. Um, and then certainly Belton definitely showed me I could. So because especially like I was supposed to go to a job in which I would be a part of a team and have a bigger place in a team, into now I am in charge of students like right away. So
Yeah, that's cool. So
yeah.
I wanted you to talk on that, but because I've heard that before, the
Mhm.
uh, different upbringings and different backgrounds of different people. But theater was the place that it was safe,
Yeah.
which is one of
Yeah.
my things that I've always taken to the classroom, or did, RIP to my life in the classroom. But that was one of those things, is I would always say, this is, if anything, this is a safe place. You may not learn a single thing about theater, but at least you know that uh, you're welcome to be here, no matter
Yeah.
what or who you are. So
Yeah, and well, first of all, too, now you have a life in so many
yeah,
classrooms
right.
through the
Yeah.
difference that you will make through covenant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially now, being a tech teacher. I think a friend of mine once said, like, "Man, tech theater is kind of an excuse to just like build and build and build and build,
Yeah.
versus a construction class, where you're trying to learn to build something to last." And of course we still have standards and we
Right.
still want them to do it safely and use best practices, but they can take the pride that something they make is still gonna get used,
Right.
and then as they stick with it, their work is gonna get better and better. But so often I feel like we don't see that. We
Yeah.
don't see that in ourselves too. Like, the whole I think I see on Facebook, like, the when I'm down on Facebook, someone will say, like, "5 years ago, the old you would have been so proud."
Yeah.
Like, or I guess that's not right. The young me would have
Yeah.
been so proud. I'm
Yeah.
the old me.
You are the
Yeah,
old version of you. Yeah.
exactly.
you're the
Yeah, and
you're
then
You're the
but
oldest version right now, of you.
right now, yes. And I loved your point too of saying, wanting to give your students a safe space.
Yeah.
Because we were recently talking, because we're in service right now with my district of fine arts. Um, Fine arts in our district.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
those are the words.
Yeah.
The uh, we wanted to think of core values
Yeah.
that we have in fine arts, and I kept noticing this. These two common themes of having a safe place
Yeah.
and having it be okay to fail, but also having high standards,
Right.
for them to give their best effort, to give their best work. And I thought that was really interesting, and I really do hope that both of those values make it in there,
Yeah.
to show that they need to balance each other out too. Certainly, like with working with Melissa, Um, and Mel Edwards used to be
Yeah.
in my position
Never
too,
heard of her.
and what
Yeah,
she
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, to talk about like an intimidating
Yeah.
replacement right there. Um, but both of them really valued giving their best effort, and just knowing that like so often we aren't the best judges of ourselves
Right.
and what we can do. So offering that as an educator is really important, while at the same time, um, not bogging them down through the comparison of others.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
also like there's a difference between creating a space where you're allowed to fail and creating a space where you're allowed to quit. Those are two different things, right?
Yes,
So
yes, exactly. That's the perfect way to say
yeah.
it too.
So anyway,
Yeah,
but
if you don't mind me jumping into something else
do
too,
it.
I think
Do it.
something that's also like a thread of my life is
This episode is about you, so you get to jump in
oh,
wherever you want.
wow,
Anyway, continue.
little old me.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I hope that, my charisma makes up for the fact that I only kind of speak English.
Yeah, that's all
That's
right.
why I'm not an
I
English
always tell
teacher.
people it's not my first language. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, like grunts and head nods are my first language. And then, um so another thread in my life is I am extremely insecure.
Yeah.
Like I used to be like that kind of person who was like, well, if I tell myself what an idiot I am, then eventually I'll do better. And of course that never works. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them are like therapy uh related to. So I got into like self-parenting and like kind of talking to myself like, hey, you tried your best, but you were really tired at that moment. Maybe you're a little hungry, like just talking to myself like a child. Anyway, that is not even the point that I was trying to get to, but yeah, self-parenting is nice and helpful to talk to yourself as, especially when you are a teacher
Yeah.
and everything is bombarding you all at once. But one of the most helpful pieces of advice that I got was from Cleo House Jr., who is the director of the School of Theater and Dance at
Yep.
SFA. So one of the last conversations I had with him before I graduated, I was basically just like, hey, what is the last bits of wisdom you can give to me before I'm out of here? And he was quite honest with me in saying, like, you know, the being I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but he was like, "You being a jerk to yourself, it's not cute."
Yeah.
Like he was like, "You like underplaying yourself, or um minimizing your work, or being insecure or not jumping into things right away. Like it's not cute, or it
Yeah.
stops being cute." So um like there's not always going to be someone else that can show you your value, so you have to be that person for yourself. So
Yeah.
okay, it tied back in
Yeah.
self-parenting. Yeah,
And Cleo's been on here before. I don't remember
he was
the.
on this
Yeah, yeah,
podcast.
yeah. He's been on before.
I
Yeah, yeah.
totally missed that episode.
It was
Oh,
a it was years ago, literally.
oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna be listening to that. I
Yeah.
love Cleo.
Yeah, he's
He's
great.
amazing. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Stuart Smalley with Daily Affirmations?
No, I
So
haven't.
this is a straight no oh my gosh, Saturday Night Live sketch that was on in the mid to late 90s. And it was Al Franken, who's now, I guess, a senator or a congressman. I don't remember what he is, but so Al Franken was a comedian, still is, I guess, that did a short, quick bit, probably a minute sometimes, of daily affirmations on SNL. And they were somewhat comical, like it was meant to be kind of fun, especially when he had celebrities on with him or the host. But for the most part, it was like inspirational, like talking to yourself, the same thing you just said about like no, I am good enough. And so the line that always came from that is, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
seen that actually, and gosh darn it,
Yeah.
people like me.
So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Stuart Smalley. But
Mhm.
anyway, I grew up on that stuff. But the oh shoot, the other thing there was one other thing I was gonna say off of what you said, but now I'm blanking. But yeah, anyway, that one was the important one. But there's my short term memory going bye bye. Um, so
As
you,
it does.
yeah, oh, that's the other thing. Uh, Mel, speaking of Mel, and I jokingly said, never heard of her. She is very good at not allowing you, and I don't mean you necessarily, but it could be you, just the proverbial you. She doesn't allow you to get down on yourself. Like she's very good with me, especially saying, you've got to put your work out there. You have to show off your work. If you don't, who else is going to do it? And so
Yes.
she's a great source for, I don't want to say get off your ass. I mean, but I'm sure she would do that too, to tell you to, like, hey, no, be, your best self and show your best self out there. So that whole, agreeing with Cleo in a way that, yeah, it's, I don't know if I'd say it's not cute, but but it's a very, seems to be a common thread with people, in your life. So, that are just those types of people that say, stop. So,
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely say so, and
yeah,
yeah, Mel came over for a professional development
yeah,
session, and we were, working at our PIC and in our shop too, and, I was really struck by the fact, that was her shop
yeah,
for
right.
6 years, and she started the program. There wasn't a tech director before her, so a lot of, like, how things are in there are because of her, but she still, like, talked to me and, like, as the tech director of that space too, and was asking me like, "Hey, for this part, like, do you think it would be better if we did it this way or
Yeah,
that way?" And, um, so that was, yeah, she's incredible
yeah,
for so many reasons. Yeah,
yeah,
just the way her mind works and how she'll just, "This is dumb," what is it? She was showing us, like, her wire cutter. "Wire cutters are dumb, so I made one, and it's a million times
yeah.
better."
She's
So,
she's ridiculous. But yeah,
yeah.
and
Oh,
also,
I have
yeah,
another
yeah,
story
go do it.
actually.
Yeah,
That is
story
that is
time.
like this is what Mel is.
Gather around the
Okay,
magic
so
carpet. Yeah, yeah,
yes, yes. Okay, so, I did robotics club briefly in high school. We didn't have one for very long. Um, and it was like those Lego, like, robotics ones, and we had, like, a manual. And we were gonna have a club fair, so we were making, like, this roller coaster, and we made it off of what the manual said. Um, and I was like, "Great, we did it. Now we don't have to do anything else." And then a bunch of the other people in the club were like, "Well, what if we added this so it does a flip or this or that so it does all these different things?" And I was like, "But guys, we did the manual. Aren't we done now? Don't we get to rest?" Um, but, they were but and I also just thought like, "Oh, this is gonna go horribly, like, we're gonna break this thing that we just spent so much time making." But then it didn't, and we had a roller coaster that could do, like, flips and other tricks and stuff, and that really struck me to be like, "Okay, let's think out of the box, let's put our own ideas into something and, not just follow the manual." Yeah.
yeah. That's a struggle for me, like, personally. Like, I mean, I've never really talked about that, but how difficult for me personally it is to think outside the box. To be completely honest, like, one of the people that helps me or has helped me do that is, like, Stuart Savage down here at Carnegie. He literally, one day I showed him a set I was doing, the full set on stage, and he was like, just angle it a little bit, and it'll make it more interesting. Those types of things. My brain does not think in that way, in those dimensions, if you will.
Mhm.
So I get that, the whole think outside the box, but I personally struggle with that quite often. I know people think I'm like a pretty decent set designer, but I steal. Like I'm constantly like taking ideas from other people and just putting them into, my and making a casserole, if you will, of scene design. So
I do
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yes, I feel like such a fraud so
yeah,
much of the time. I think too, I kinda like the question sometimes of like, are you more of a technician, a designer, or a stage manager?
yeah,
And I definitely feel like more like a technician.
yeah, yeah.
I really enjoy the building and the, um, fixing things, cleaning things, like making the vision happen, but I do struggle to funny enough, like, even though I'm in a creative field, I struggle to think of myself as a creative person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% with you on that. The only place I don't is lighting. Like I could
Mhm.
sit, that's the only place that I feel super confident with design, but everything else it's like sometimes it's a struggle. It's sometimes I don't enjoy it, and even though the results typically turn out okay, I'm not having a good time doing it, It's
Do you
like
think part of that too is just, especially living in the world with the internet and living in a place like Texas where there are so many amazing, motivated theater educators, it's hard to just not compare yourself to them and their work?
that's a great question. I don't know. I've always and you and I can be in the same raft together. It's probably not a boat. I don't know, of like the self confidence thing, and that's why like last I don't remember when it was, whatever conference it was. I led a professional or I led a workshop on imposter syndrome and talking about that and how strong that is in a lot of people, but they don't either recognize it or they don't admit it, that's what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
One of my dearest family friends is like the leader of advocation. That's not a word. Advocating for obsessive compulsive disorder, and he talks about how most people have a form of obsessive compulsive disorder, but you have to figure out if it's obsessive compulsive disorder or if it's ADD or if it's like what is it, but there is some sort of something that most humans have because their brains are constantly moving and changing and morphing. So, you
Oh,
know,
that's really
yeah,
interesting.
and so it's
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if that answers the question, but to be honest, it's like I don't know if it's a Texas thing because I did not grow up like you mentioned at the very beginning. I didn't grow up in the UIL system, so I didn't know that world, and so I wasn't intimidated by that world, and I'm still not because winning or losing one act play doesn't matter to me, which is great in an interview with administrators. But it's like I don't know if where I think it's because I enjoy math and 90 degrees in geometry, and geometry and scene design don't really mix, because you should not think so linear.
Mhm.
It should be more of an amoeba. It should be more, something that
That's why
flows.
I like it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I like scenic design.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. So
you can
and
fudge things a little bit, so
but my brain does not go that direction. So I don't know. That's a long answer for your podcast. That
no, but it's an interesting conversation,
yeah,
and, did you say that was your cousin that does the advocacy work?
just a like somebody that
Accredited.
literally has known me since I was in diapers. Yeah, guy
Oh,
named Ethan
nice.
Smith. Yeah, he's family, but not blood. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I love that he spreads that message too because, definitely, like, coming into this podcast, I definitely wanted to talk about, my insecurities,
yeah,
and, that philosophy 'cause I feel like it's helped me when I've heard people, who do my work talk about their struggles,
right,
just, like, know that we're not alone. I don't wanna get, like, too much into the rut, again,
right.
like, going into that balance because I have noticed sometimes, like, um, I was joking is it okay if I cuss on
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah, yeah,
podcast?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's not a huge word. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was just like, I think teachers, we love to bitch because it's all that we have.
Right,
So,
right.
um, and it's it can be cathartic, but at the same time, it sometimes can get you into that, like, ultimate, negativity, like, "Oh, what am I looking for?" Like, there's no hope
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that too.
Yeah, sure. I know
Like
what you're saying.
fatalism.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, which is
perpetuity.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, that is not where I was trying to go with this, but when you kinda talk about, like, things, what in the narrative, like, "This is what I've struggled and this is how I overcame," it always comforts me because sometimes it's easy to feel alone. Sometimes
yeah.
we weirdly convince ourselves in a world of 8 billion people that we are the only ones who've felt all the emotions
Right.
that we feel. And I guess that's why we tell stories and why we do theater.
Well,
So,
and I
yeah.
also think to go back on the theater teachers bitch a lot. I do trust me. You're correct, 100%. But I struggle with the why. Why do we bitch? And I think one of the things I think is because theater education, no matter where you are, especially in Texas, is not equitable. So
Mm,
you might be, at a school that doesn't have much. Everything is 20 years old, or and your space is you have to put your space together just as much as you have to put your shows together and things like
mhm,
that. And then you have another school who um, has all the state of the art technology, and they have a beautiful space and they have great support, but they don't want to say that, because if they say that out loud, it makes other people feel bad. So I'm just going to pick out the
mm.
things I don't have, because you're also picking out the things you don't have. So now we can kind of have a common chat about all the things we want rather than all the things we have.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That I think that is such a good point too, that especially because I do feel very fortunate in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, for the district that I have. A lot of things that we don't have, we are actually about to get.
Right.
Like, and I have admin who cares. But I've definitely, when hearing other teachers talk about like how their admin doesn't support them or what equipment they don't have, I think I do feel that urge to also be there with them, because I almost feel like if I am talking about how lucky I am, then I am saying like my job is easy,
Right.
which it's not. And I'm like, I think I desperately like want to be like, oh, but it's I have the yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
like I have this struggle too, or I need this too. So so that the other person doesn't look at me as like, oh, you've got it.
Yeah.
You've got it so good. But
Well,
what a lucky thing to say
well,
as at the
and
same time.
and I also think, like, I think human support outweighs any other type of support that you'll ever get, because, like, if you take,
Yes.
for example, I think, like, someone like a Julio Morales, or quite a few of the schools down in the valley who don't have a lot of money, right? Their
Mhm.
schools, just the communities, and that's not really going to change anytime soon. But they love what they're doing, because just because the community doesn't have money, the community supports them. And just because the school doesn't have money, the admins support them. And so that makes your brain feel better about what you have compared to what you don't have. And so I think that's part of, I think that human support completely exponentially outweighs any other type of support. So, it's the whole, like,
Yes.
money won't make you happy type of thing, which is, I didn't just win the Mega Millions like one random person in Florida did yesterday, but whatever. I'm sure they're a lot happier today
Mhm.
because they're a
No,
billionaire.
I
But
I absolutely couldn't agree more too. I see it, and I'm very rich too in my professional life. We have a fine arts team at Belton High School that gets along great. Our theater department, actually, one of my best friends actually just joined us at Lake Belton Middle School.
yeah,
His name's Quentin Drake too, and but even before that too, we're just such a good team, and we're
yeah,
all so on the same page. I remember Missoula Children's Theater's training was so great.
yeah,
They really like they're such a well-oiled machine. And one thing that they talked about a lot was your relationship with your touring partner.
right,
And I really appreciated that because when you do have such in a close and intimate relationship with somebody like that, because like that one, you're literally hardly have a second without that person, which is familiar to most teams of two theater teachers in Texas, but even more to that extra extreme because we're even like driving for 10 hours every week. Anyway, so what they said was like, you guys are going to disagree on things on the best way to handle a show, handle a situation, but just remember that your goal is the same, which is that you want to give these kids the best experience possible. So I've always found like in all of education too, like when we just know that we have that same goal in mind, even when things get really intense, it it can like, not to say situations still won't happen, but it can help you move past them and apologize for them and want you to work with that person and admire that that person has the same goal as you.
Right. Very good. Um, I love this. I actually want to do a follow up with you at some point, but because I think this type of conversation either A can continue with the two of us, but also should add one or two more voices because like I rarely get these honest conversations on this podcast. No offense to past guests, but very rarely do I get this kind of conversation. And this is exactly like I don't know how far back you've listened, but like you'll notice that in whatever it is, Apple Podcasts or whatever it's called, and in Spotify, there's no episode 1 or 2, I think, because this podcast, when it was episode 1, was me just getting on here and complaining, talking about all the things that were wrong. And my wife listened to it and said, "You can't do that. You can't have a podcast where everything you talk about is negative and wrong." And so then I had Mandy Tapia on, who's now at Keller, and at the time was in Bastrop. But and we bantered like this. We just chit chatted about things that we could do to help make the world of education better. And this was early 2019, like February of 2019, I think. And then that was okay. But then I started interviewing people, and that's when it turned into what it is 200 episodes later. So, but when I was interviewing people, I wanted this. I wanted a conversation that you and I just had, not the exact conversation, but just that kind of like, let's figure out where people are coming from, the psychology of things sometimes, the why, the how, and the help, right? And so I appreciate it. On that same topic, oh, go say what you want to say.
Oh, no, I'm so glad, I'm so glad,
Yeah,
that means a lot too, and I certainly don't blame anyone because I even as we were getting to the end of this too, I was thinking, "I'm gonna have a vulnerability hangover after this probably."
yeah.
Uh,
Just go get
so
some
I get
CBD.
why too
Yeah.
it's intimidating too, but I feel like a lot of that I think that's great, I think
No,
that's great.
you've done. It's amazing. Like this is easily top 5 for me right now.
Oh,
And
stop
I'm
it.
dead serious. I don't.
Yeah.
You can go down the list and ask people if I've ever said that to them, and all but 4 will say that. Okay, so I've never said it. So, let's see, top 5. I can't think of top 5. I got to put my wife in the top 5. I mean, obviously, or I'm getting
Oh,
divorced.
yeah, yeah, you
So
kinda
I'm
yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna get you out of here on this question. And you kind of quickly glossed over this when you were talking about sort of how you got the interview, or when you got that interview and you had 10 minutes, right?
Mhm.
And you said you called your good friend and said, "What are some questions that you should ask during or after the interview?" So I got to know. We're going to end the podcast with, or this episode with you saying or telling us what were some of the questions that you were told to ask, or what were some of the questions that you did ask during the interview. Do you remember? It's kind of like
Oh
the
gosh, I think
advice session.
she gave me, I think, a lot of really good pointers. For some reason, the only question that I remember is, do you have or do you value giving your staff professional development opportunities? Um, and the answer was yes. We get they our fine arts director in Keith Zulke, he really values professional development opportunities. So we've been at TXCTA. We've been at Thespian Conference and Summerfest. Yeah, yeah. Um, no, I suppose that's not a very
Yeah.
exciting answer,
So then,
but
no,
yeah.
that's good. No, I appreciate that.
But it helped. It
Yeah.
definitely helped everything she said
And
because I
then,
got the job. So
so then end on this. Is there a question you wished you would have asked, or that you thought I should have asked that question? Not anything about specifically the district or the school that
oh
you are.
man.
I don't want something to come from your experience. I want something to come from, like, if you're going to interview, make sure you do ask this.
If you're gonna interview, that's such a good question.
Now that you're a veteran.
Now that I'm a veteran, ooh, yeah. Um, yeah. Ah, that's such a good question. Speaking of being a fraud, I watch YouTube videos every time I
Yeah.
do interviews, and I steal their amazing questions.
So that's it.
Oh, my sister,
There you go.
okay, so this my sister has a good one. Um, she likes to ask, "Is there anything in my resume or from this interview that is something that not could concern you, but you are
Give
less impressed with that I can address now and convince you how awesome
right.
I am."
Okay. So cool.
Not like that, not like that, but I
So,
thought,
like,
"Oh, you
anything that gives you
know."
pause that I can
Yeah.
to kind of defend in a way. Okay.
Yes, exactly, exactly, and I thought that was a really interesting, a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that I think I would not that I'm planning on doing any interviews, but
Yeah.
that I would use in
Yeah.
the future.
And yeah, just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
You never know when an adjunct opportunity might open up.
What a weird way to end. Anyway, still haven't got my daughter to record Minor Wisdom.